In this lecture, we are going to study about LED, light emitting diodes, their structure, materials and characteristics. This is lecture 4 of unit 3 optoelectronics. Now what is LED and what is the basic principle of a LED? A light emitting diode is essentially a PN junction diode that gives off light when it is forward biased. The amount of light emitted is directly proportional to the forward current. The wavelength of light emitted and hence the color depends on the band gap energy of the materials forming the PN junction. How to calculate the value of lambda? We know that we have a equation E is equal to h nu, where E in this case is the energy gap. Nu can be written as C by lambda, or lambda is equal to hc by Eg. Here h is the Planck's constant and c is the velocity of light, both are constants. Eg is the energy gap. So you would see lambda is inversely proportional to the energy gap. And we know that from material to material, the value of energy gap will change. So as energy gap changes or as the material changes, energy gap changes, and hence the wavelength or color will also change. This picture over here shows you the symbol of a LED wherein essentially light is given out. Now this setup shows you how we can produce light using a LED. Over here we have got a metallic contact at the bottom which covers the entire area, whereas on top the metallic contact is not on the entire area but there is a gap for the photons or light to escape, and these photons escape in a direction perpendicular to the junction. This is the junction region between the n-type material and the p-type material, and this setup is forward biased. The PN junction is forward biased. Now in a surface emitting LED, light is emitted in a direction perpendicular to the PN junction plane. So this is the PN junction plane and light is emitted in a direction perpendicular to it. An N-type layer is grown on a substrate and P-type layer is grown on it by the process of diffusion. The P layer is made very thin to prevent losses of photon due to absorption in the layer. So P layer over here is on the N layer and P layer is very close to the surface and it is thin. Metal contact is present on the P layer such that some part of P layer will allow photons to escape. Metal contact is present at the bottom for reflecting the photons into the material and to provide electrical contact, because when recombination takes place some of the photons may come down. So if they happen to come down, this metallic surface over here can reflect them back into the material. The generated light may suffer total internal reflection at the semiconductor air interface. Where is this interface? This is the interface between the semiconductor and air. The generated light may suffer total internal reflection at the semiconductor air interface, and hence the device is enclosed in an epoxy resin of suitable refractive index so that the photons will escape. So once there is a recombination of electrons and holes, this light will escape out of the material. What is the working of this? The PN junction is forward biased. Electrons from N side get injected to P side. Hole injection from P side to N side is very less. The reason is P side is very thin. Electrons injected into the P side recombine with the holes, which result in spontaneous emissions of light. This effect is called injection electroluminescence. These photons should be allowed to escape from the device without being reabsorbed. Now, this recombination can be of two types. We have direct recombination and we have got indirect recombination. Now in this diagram you would see on the x-axis you have the momentum vector k and on the y-axis you have the energy. In the first diagram you could see that the maximum of the valence band and minimum of the conduction band occur at the same value of k. Such type of semiconductors are called as direct band gap semiconductors. In the second diagram you can see the maximum of the valence band and the minimum of the conduction band occur at different values of K. This is called as an indirect band gap semiconductor. We shall see what are the differences between a direct band gap semiconductor and an indirect band gap semiconductor. In direct band gap materials, the minimum energy of the conduction band occurs at the same value of momentum vector as the maximum energy of the valence band. The efficiency of transition is good. Gallium arsenide is an example of direct band gap materials. What about indirect band gap materials? In indirect band gap materials, the minimum energy of the conduction band and maximum energy of valence band occur at different values of momentum vector k. Due to this difference in momentum, the probability of direct electron hole pair recombination is less. Gallium phosphide is an example of an indirect band gap material. Now, what is the VI characteristics? Along the x-axis you have voltage and along the y-axis you have current. Voltage is in volts whereas current is in milliampere. Since this is a PN junction, what happens initially when you give voltage, it is used to overcome the barrier voltage. After the barrier voltage is overcome, then the current starts increasing. Different colors are because of the different materials. Gallium arsenide emits light in infrared region. Gallium arsenide phosphide emits red or yellow color. Gallium phosphide emits red or green color. Now this is an application of LED as indicators and light sources in fiber optics communication. A number of LEDs may be grouped together to form a display.